Now from Facebook, I have a comment I'd like to share. This comes from facebook.com/Adam versus the Man, where CXT Turner writes, "Dear Adam, my name is retired Sergeant Chris Turner. I'm 33 years old and 100% disabled after a VBIED, that's Vehicle-Borne Improvised Explosive Device, attack in 2008. I love your shows and agree with most of the things you do. The question I have as an OIF vet is, how do we come to grips with the things we did for the military-industrial complex? I was a combat engineer in the Army and hunted IEDs. I thought at the time we were doing a great service for the people of Mosul by cleaning up the bombs that could hurt innocent people. Now, just to put this in perspective, as I'm sure you understand now, Mr. Turner, while you may have been cleaning up bombs that would have hurt U.S. soldiers, those weren't innocent people. And while certainly innocent people were hurt by IED attacks in Iraq, the effect, had they been able to defend their homeland as they saw fit, might have been a withdrawal of U.S. troops sooner. Even though we didn't go to war for freedom, we as soldiers did do some good, right? I don't know. And, for me, I'm in a fortunate situation. I actually have it a little bit easier than you. I was a sergeant in civil affairs. I believed in the truly noble part of what we were doing, trying to help people, trying to rebuild, and it was pretty misguided. It was dangerously misguided because, I thought that what we were doing was trying to clean up our mess. I was against the invasion, but for the occupation, you could say, which is a really, really silly kind of position to hold. But that's what I believed. I never killed anyone. I never fired my weapon in combat. So I did, I can't even say though that of like direct things that like I didn't have some participation, because I tortured Iraqis. Yeah, there were a couple incidents where, what I did in guarding detainees crossed the line, and feeling guilt and shame doesn't help. First of all, if you take it as some motivation to do what I've done, to speak out, as I did for so many years, focusing on anti-war activism, as I still do now, and reaching out and talking to veterans like you about issues like this, and making sure that America's youth today understands that serving the military-industrial complex is not the same as serving your country or serving your people or anything like that. And you shouldn't even be looking at it through this lens, because if you're going to, well, we did some good, right?
Wouldn't you say so, Bueller?
Oh, definitely.
You know what? It doesn't matter, because you're going to look at the big picture and you're going to say, well, the country was screwed. If you have any integrity, if you have any honesty. So anyway, Adam, I just wondered what your feelings are about your service. Do you think you did any good over there, or did we only bring pain to those people? And I want to share a story on that note from The Independent. Toxic legacy of U.S. assault on Fallujah, worse than Hiroshima. Yeah. We're going to get into this because these are the numbers here. And this is something that really every vet needs to be able to hear and face up to. And this is just one microcosm of the war in Iraq. But all too many veterans like yourself, Mr. Turner, will go home and they'll see this and they'll realize, wow, it doesn't add up. Maybe the war wasn't in the country's best interest. And you try to rationalize it. And you can't do that. The first thing you have to do is accept it. So I'm gonna throw some facts in your face right now. You're gonna have to really dig deep, reach down and grab a hold and acknowledge the significance of this. Dramatic increases in infant mortality, cancer, and leukemia in the city of Fallujah, which was bombarded by Marines in 2004, exceed those reported by survivors of the atomic bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. Iraqi doctors in Fallujah have complained since 2005 of being overwhelmed by the number of babies with serious birth defects, ranging from a girl born with 2 heads to paralysis of the lower limbs. They said they were also seeing far more cancers than they did before the battle for Fallujah between U.S. troops and insurgents. Their claims have been supported by a survey showing a fourfold increase in all cancers and a 12-fold increase in childhood cancer in under 14s. Infant mortality in the city is more than 4 times higher than neighboring Jordan and 8 times higher than in Kuwait. Dr. Chris Busby, a visiting professor at the University of Ulster and one of the authors of the survey of 4,800 individuals in Fallujah, said it is difficult to pin down the exact cause of cancers and birth defects. He added that to produce an effect like this, some very major mutagenic exposure must have occurred in 2004 when the attacks happened. Now, you want to get into the details here. There are some people who should absolutely, Mr. Turner, feel ashamed. There are some people who did what they did with no pretense whatsoever of doing the right thing, for whom war was the excuse to let their evil run amok, who should probably kill themselves right about now. Yeah, and you know who you are if you're listening. And I'm going to talk here about one of the U.S. commanders who falls into this category. U.S. Marines first besieged and bombarded Fallujah 30 miles west of Baghdad in April 2004 after 4 employees of the American security company Blackwater were killed and their bodies burned. After an 8-month standoff, the Marines stormed the city in November using artillery and aerial bombing against rebel positions. U.S. forces later admitted that they had employed white phosphorus as well as other munitions. In the U.S. assault, U.S. commanders largely treated Fallujah as a free fire zone to try to reduce casualties among their own troops. British officers were appalled by the lack of concern for civilian casualties. This is a quote from Brigadier Nigel Aylwin Foster, a British commander. During preparatory operations in the November 2004 Fallujah clearance operation, on one night, over 40 155mm artillery rounds were fired into a small sector of the city. He added that the U.S. commander who ordered this devastating use of firepower did not consider it significant enough to mention it in his daily report to the U.S. general in command. This is the guy that should kill himself. Yeah, you. If you're and we could probably find out who you are. And if someone listening to this wants to put a name on this asshole, please go ahead and let's just tell him. Let's let him know that his response to this, if he wants to know how to make peace after this, how to best serve the world, yeah, he should probably kill himself. This isn't someone who was doing this by mistake. This is someone leading the mistake to indulge his own evil prejudice. This is someone who drove the war machine because he was evil, who drove it to these horrendous acts out of no noble intent. This isn't some private being duped by a general or a politician going, yeah, we're going to keep America safe and fight the terrorists who got us on 9/11. No, this is one real evil motherfucker. Now, if he had, reported it, perhaps, if he had filled out all the paperwork, perhaps you could say maybe he was doing it for noble reasons. But that's not the case. Dr. Busby says that while he cannot identify the type of armaments used by the Marines, the extent of genetic damage suffered by inhabitants suggests the use of uranium in some form. Quote, my guess is that they used a new weapon against buildings to break through walls and kill those inside. Yeah, depleted uranium. Remember the shit they told you was totally safe? Oh yeah, it's depleted. It doesn't have any of the radioactive shit in it. No. Now we see the increases in all of the diseases for people in the city who have been covered by the dust and the explosions from these advanced hardened munitions. But you're seeing it in veterans as well. The survey was carried out by a team of 11 researchers in January and February this year who visited 711 houses in Fallujah. A questionnaire was filled in by householders giving details of cancers, birth outcomes, and infant mortality. Hitherto, the Iraqi government has been loath to respond to complaints from civilians about damage to their health during military operations. Researchers were initially regarded with some suspicion by locals, particularly after a Baghdad television station broadcast a report saying a survey was being carried out by terrorists, and anybody conducting it or answering questions would be arrested. Now, this just goes to show the impact of an experience of war like this on a community. Well, what are they going to do? They're going to be a little frightened of outsiders when, the last people that came through here from another country made Fallujah a living hell that continues to this day. Those organizing the survey subsequently arranged to be accompanied by a person of standing in the community to allay suspicions. The study, entitled Cancer, Infant Mortality, and Birth-Sex Ratio in Fallujah, Iraq, 2005 to 2009, is by Dr. Busby, Malak Hamdan, and Entisar Arayabi, and concludes that anecdotal evidence of a sharp rise in cancer and congenital birth defects is correct. Infant mortality was found to be 80 per 1,000 births, compared to 19 in Egypt, 17 in Jordan, 9.7 in Kuwait. The report says that the types of cancer are similar to that in the Hiroshima survivors who were exposed to ionizing radiation from the bomb and uranium in the fallout. Researchers found a 38 times increase in leukemia, a 10-fold increase in female breast cancer, and significant increases in lymphoma and brain tumors in adults. At Hiroshima, survivors showed a 17-fold increase in leukemia, but in Fallujah, Dr. Busby says what is striking is not only the greater prevalence of cancer, but the speed with which it was affecting people. Of particular significance was the finding that the sex ratio between newborn boys and girls had changed. In a normal population, this is 1,050 boys born to 1,000 girls. But for those born from 2005, there was an 18% drop in male births. So the ratio was 850 males to 1,000 females. The sex ratio is an indicator of genetic damage that affects boys more than girls. A similar change in the sex ratio was discovered after Hiroshima. The U.S. cut back on its use of firepower in Iraq from 2007 because of the anger it provoked among civilians. But at the same time, there has been a decline in healthcare and sanitary conditions in Iraq since 2003. The impact of war on civilians was more severe in Fallujah than anywhere else in Iraq because the city continued to be blockaded and cut off from the rest of the country long after 2004. War damage was only slowly repaired, and people from the city were frightened to go to hospitals in Baghdad because of military checkpoints on the road into the capital. I was in Fallujah in 2004 with the Marines. I was there for all of this happening. I had these artillery airships firing from directly over my head into the city of Fallujah. I saw these explosions. I saw the clouds of white phosphorus across the city, and I didn't do anything to stop it. I was complicit. Even as a civil affairs sergeant who thought he was doing the best he could for the people of Iraq who genuinely cared, it was my blindness that contributed to their pain. So what do you do? What can you do to make amends? If you see this for what it is, and you realize the evil that you contributed to, that you enabled, on the part of whatever general or colonel it was that ordered these airstrikes, that allowed this to happen, there's nothing you can do to make amends. Nothing. You have to accept this. You've hurt people. You were a part of this for whatever thing that you contributed. And the best you can do is make amends and ensure that the lessons are learned. If you're one of the evil motherfuckers that really participated in atrocities in war to indulge your own pleasure, your own whatever the hell it was, that sick pleasure you got out of hurting other people, and that's who you are. You're a sadistic motherfucker, and now you see, in hindsight, deformed children as a result of what you did, and that turns your stomach a little bit. I hope it does. And you don't renounce that evil, and you don't renounce militarism and war and government itself as a violation of personal rights, then you should kill yourself. Far be it for me as a veteran to tell another veteran, you should kill yourself. But if you're not one of those people, or if you are one of those people and you are able to say, you know what? I know better now. I have hurt someone. I have harmed individuals. I have contributed to the atrocity that is modern war. It's the same as when you hurt another human being. What would you do if you killed somebody in a car accident? What would you do? You'd get over it, and you would do your best to make amends so that hopefully you would not be judged simply by the crimes that you were a party to, but at least hope that you could be judged by your overall impact on humanity. The legacy that you create for yourself can still be a positive one if you do this. If you renounce militarism, if you renounce war, if you renounce government by violence and coercion, and you come out on the side of peace, justice, and liberty, and know that while history may judge you more for your role in the war, your own conscience will be the ultimate judge of how you lived your life. So the only advice I can give, really, Mr. Turner, is to listen to your conscience now and do what is going to make you happiest in being able to look back on the short time that you enjoy on planet Earth.
You want to say something for posterity, sir?
War is hell.
Sergeant, are you having fun?
Well, it's not like going to the beach fun or making out with your sister fun. It's more like shoving shards of broken glass up your ass and taking a bath in Tabasco sauce fun.
Who's next for the shower?
This is your last warning. Sir.
That would have been the end of it. And that would have been justice for Kelly Thomas, who might be alive today,
Facts up.